Okay, so I was thinking into it about what would be the best thing to talk about. And what I was thinking was understanding the solar plexus and the heart. Okay, so they're going to be more about the root and the sacral, but I think that the most important kind of center to understand for this lifetime is the solar plexus, and I think that the heart is the sweetest thing to sit in. So those two are, I feel, the most important at the moment for human development. So I'm going to make a video on those first. The solar plexus is the seat of your willpower, but it's also the seat of your ego. So it's where most people's sense of their kind of, and it's not just the seat, like the root and the sacral are also seats of the ego. But what I mean by that is that like the true kind of face of the ego is sat in the solar plexus, and when it moves to the heart, it breaks that ego in order to move to the heart. So the way to understand this is like the way that you know that you're sitting in your heart is when you are sitting without your ego. So it's when you look at everything around you and you see everything around you as being a reflection of yourself. That's when you're in the heart. When you're in the solar plexus, you're seeing everything as separated. But you also, like, if you're in a very, very high position of your soul, like, because there's different spots, right? Like in the solar plexus, and all these are all for all the different chakras, but they all kind of bleed into each other, right? So like from here to here are different energies in the solar plexus. So down here, this is more of the energy of like drive and will and motivation, and up here is the energy of like kind of like feeling the need to control like the situation that's going on. And like anger will sit, like it'll move from here up to here because it starts in one form of energy and moves into another. But the thing about it is that it can only come up to about right here. So the solar plexus energy can only go so far, and the way that it becomes expressed if it can't move into the heart is through like basically sex or like a need to control, right? Or like anger or any of those kinds of like more violent emotions. The reason why they become so violent is because there's a layer right here that needs to be broken in order to be able to kind of see these things from a different perspective. So your perspective is based on what chakra you're sitting in, right? So like the solar plexus is like, it's going to be a center of like an understanding of basically wanting to be seen by other people in a light that shows your most beautiful sides, right? But there's also another part to it where it's the temperamental sides of your kind of like ego, right? And then once you break through that solar plexus energy and move into your heart, then what happens is that you start to kind of move into this new energy of acceptance rather than the energy of kind of needing things to go the way that you want them to go. Because that's how the will kind of works, is that it's the reason why it's so powerful is because it is your desire to put your stamp on reality. And the heart kind of just takes that away, and it's like, okay, your stamp's already there, now you're just here to love the reality that you've made for yourself. You know, like it's like there's a huge difference in the way that they kind of like are portrayed. And when you move into your heart, then all of those sufferings and tortures that come with sitting in the solar plexus kind of just dissolve away, because the need to keep yourself separated from everything around you is no longer there. So the need to hold up this kind of like better than you kind of, you know, mentality, it just goes away. And you start to understand that there is nothing that's better or worse than anything else, because it's all a part of the same thing. So the suffering that comes with trying to keep yourself up as a separated thing in a world that's not separate goes away, you know? And that's the biggest part of the solar plexus, is that like you can use that energy also for positive things as well. So it's like you can use that willpower to get things done, to be able to like kind of like push yourself into a new space. So it's not like it's all bad, but it's just that it's expressed in different ways, you know? So like Another way that solar plexus likes to express itself is through kind of like your need to change whole systems of thinking. So if you feel as though the society is not the way that it needs to be, your will to change that is kind of coming from the solar plexus area. And there's a big deal that comes to that too, because with that will that is there, you can actually redirect that into your own self and have a will to open the heart. And when that happens, then your solar plexus is actually being used to open your heart, and therefore the energy starts to work together, and it exponentiates the process of opening the heart, which is the main goal of this whole thing, so that we can eliminate our suffering and we can sit in a place where we are in love all the time. After you've kind of understood this, then you'll start to see that any energy that you feel from here down to about right here is the solar plexus, and you'll start to feel it like physically. So it'll start to literally feel as though like there's like pockets or surges of energy that's coming all throughout your body. And if you understand where it's coming from, like say it's specifically the solar plexus, if you understand that it's coming from the solar plexus, then you can know how to move that around your body, and you can know what to do with it because you know where it's coming from and you know why it's there. And you also have to understand like how these physical feelings link up with the mental feelings that you're thinking. So everything that you think, it has a reverberation physically. So like it's going to show through a feeling that you have, but you have to be sensitive to your own feelings and understand where you sit. Like when you're sitting in your heart, you have to understand how that feels, and when you're sitting in your stomach, you have to see how that feels, and you have to be able to like look at both of them at the same time, so that you can consciously change your sitting from your stomach up into the heart. But another thing about the solar plexus is that it's activated through the sun. So the more that you sit in the sun, the more that you can kind of like activate your solar plexus. And so that's why they say that like sitting in sunlight and having sun throughout the day actually will bring you senses of like well-being and peace, because it activates that center, and it will actually help to alleviate cravings for other things as well, because that willpower thing kind of like comes on. So like another thing is to notice like the energy draining thing. So I just made a video about this, but like for the solar plexus, the biggest energy drainer that you have is actually your mind and your mental activity. So thinking badly about yourself, or thinking badly about the environment, or thinking badly about the situation, or any of that stuff is what will excuse me, feels tickly right here, deactivate the solar plexus and move you back down into a lower center. And once the solar plexus is like starting to be deactivated, then you start to move down layers. So like you'll try to use sexual means in order to be able to express yourself as like making yourself feel better, right? So like that is trying to use your sacral to move up into the solar plexus, and then that's actually trying to use the solar plexus to move into the heart, because the reason why you have sex in the first place is so that you can reach the heart and feel unity or love at the moment of orgasm. So like if you are able to sit yourself in that spot mentally where you're sitting at like that acceptance level that you have at the peak of your experience, then you can actually have the thing that you're trying to reach through orgasm like all the time, and you can feel that kind of sense of unity. And then there's a level of like kundalini where your solar plexus can be so open that like it feels as though you're having an orgasm in a way, but it's like through connection and unity with everything around you rather than through sexual means. And that happens through the solar plexus. But there's two different types of kind of sexual kind of union with everything around you, and one of them is through the solar plexus and one of them is through the heart. And the heart-based one is meant to give you energy, and it's meant to give the thing that you're, so like you basically are taking energy from the cosmos, and then you feel so elated about that energy that it gives you this orgasmic feeling. But the solar plexus is like, oh, I feel so enamored by this feeling that it's making me feel like pleasure, if that makes any sense. So it's not that you're taking in the love energy from everything around you, and it's not that you're so enamored by the beauty of everything. It's more like you're enamored by the feeling that you're getting at that moment, and that's what's giving you pleasure about it. So it's like it's the kind of energy of being in love with everything versus being in love with a feeling, or being in love with pleasure versus being in love with love, you know? I think this is going a little bit far enough on this one, but I'll go ahead and do a couple other videos, but I don't know. There's something in my throat right now, and it's like messing with me. So I'll make another video in a little bit, but thank you.